In this episode of Rebelle Revealed, we're gonna do some inking. Now you may have never done ink before in real life, but in Rebelle it's not messy. It's actually very pleasant to work with ink, but there are a few things you need to pay attention to. We're gonna ink this drawing and I'm gonna show you the reason why we're gonna ink this drawing. So it looks rather different than leaving it in pencil. Well, let's start. Here's my finished drawing in pencil, but I said I like it in ink because the combination of ink and watercolor is just brilliant. Especially in real life, on traditional paper, but in Rebelle also. But before we're going to start inking, I'm going to show you a few things. You need to pay attention to a few things, otherwise we might create a mess. Let's first of all add a new layer on top of this drawing, and I'm going to hide the drawing for now. The next thing is, I'm going to go to this tilt thing, and I'm not sure what you have it on and what is left on, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt it all the way and I'm going to just do this. I'm going to leave it like this for now. And I'm going to take an ink pen, and it is already selected a dip pen. Now what I'm going to do first, I'm selecting the dip pen. I'm going to add lots of water to it, let it really nicely run. And I'm going to do this, and probably what you're going to notice right away, there it goes. This will start spreading everywhere. If I add a little bit less ink, less water, do half. I'm going to do this. And now, as you can see, because it's less watery, it's still going to run, but it's going to take a while to run. But it still will not be as crisp as if you take out could take out all of the water, of course, and add one besides it. And that is a way to control your ink. Now this will over time still spread a little bit. Now what you can also do is, of course, switch this off. I want to add lots of water again. Draw that line, and now this should stay pretty much wherever it's gonna stay. Although it will over time still spread out a little bit. To prevent that completely, you could pause the engine, or you could dry it every time with one of these, and if I dry it, now it will stop running anyway. But I want to prevent my ink from running. I'm not even sure if I want the dip pen, so what I'm going to do, this is a fountain pen. That's a nice smooth, that is too smooth for me, definitely. So I might like that dip pen. But it has some variation to the lines. I kind of like it. And water, since I don't want it to move, I think I'm fine with it being this way without water. Opacity, I'm gonna leave on 100%. The size will just look at the drawing and see which size fits the best. So that is the thing we need to pay attention to for inking. I'm actually gonna use just a black color, a nice black ink. So I'm making sure the tilt, this is off, not on, so that it won't run everywhere. If you want to be totally safe, just pause the engine, then it won't do anything, and that is actually maybe the best thing to do. Now I'm going to clear this layer. To clear a layer, I'm going to hit this X button there. Now if you don't have that clear layer button, what you're going to do is go to Edit, say Preferences, go to General, scroll all the way down till you see Panels, and set this function Add Clear Layer button to Layer Panels, and switch that on, and then say OK, and then it should be there. So I've cleared my layer. Now I'm going to bring back my sketch, and I'm just going to determine the size I want for my brush. And for that I'm going to just zoom in, and I'm going to have this dip pen, and I'm pretty sure this is way too large. I can see it already on the circle. There you go, way too large. So let me see, how small do I want it? I still want nice bold lines, but I don't want them too thick. But I do want them quite strong. Let me go to 10. Let's see what that brings. And that is a very nice size. I'm gonna go with 10, definitely. Now, there's two choices. What I can do now, I can do a nice continuous line like this. And then we get a very, very, in the end, tightly inked drawing. Or what I could do instead is I could sketch this. And then I get a little bit more lifelike. Sketch. So with the sketching motion, I'm going to use shorter strokes. And then also you see that the pen reacts way more to the pressure. There you go. Get not as clean as this, you get a different outlook. I'll leave that up to you which one you want to use. Whether you want to go for the sketching or the continuous lines, I'll leave that up to you. I might actually go for one lower, 9. So I'm going to clear this. There you go, because I got to stick to one of them. And I'm going to go for the sketching. Now the sketching will take slightly longer, as you can see, but I do like that it's a little bit more lifelike, not as tight as the other one. Now, I'm guessing you don't want to see me sketch the whole thing, or in this case, ink the whole thing. But this is actually the way I will ink something. And you probably already right away see why I don't want the pencil lines, but I prefer to have these nice tight inking lines. I just like them a lot better. Now on this I'm going to add a little bit of shadow, a thicker line, and under here I'm going to do that too. Just add a little bit of shadow line. But before I'm going to add all kinds of shadow lines, I need to determine where I want my sun from. So I'm going to do that now. So let's look at the image. I'm going to bring it all up now. I'm going to go back to the navigator. I'm going to hit that one. And I'm going to bring back the photograph, and I'm actually going to make it really strong. Now in the photo, I can determine where the sun comes from. I could just basically follow this completely as it is. And that means that the sun is basically, let me check, definitely coming from this direction here. But already something is blocking it, as you can see. I could follow that, or I could just make up my own direction and say, hey, I'm going to go with that, my own direction. I'm not sure if I want these long shadows, though they might look interesting, but I don't want to ink all of that. So what I want to do is I want to ink certain parts. I want to ink everything, but I don't want to shade everything. I want to leave that up to the watercolor too, but I'm definitely want to bring in this. Now I might just follow the photo along. So let me then continue with this part and show you that part. I'm going back to that inking layer. I want to hide the photo for now. What we're going to do is I want to add this part too. I'm on the right layer, yes. Now with the inking again, the same. What you can choose now to do is, or basically ink all these windows or copy and paste them. That choice you do have again. There you go. And then once I'm done, I'm going to show you what I am going to do with this. Let me extend this a little bit more and do this part too, so that you get an idea what I'm going to do. I'm not going to worry about the general large shadows. I want to add some local shadows to this, and the local shadows are basically for each object. It interacts, of course, with the other objects, and you need to know what is what. I know my sun is coming from this side, so that means that basically this is wrong up here, and I'm gonna erase this. Even though I have it in my pencil sketch, I'm going to erase that, do this again, and that is wrong because the shadow needs to be on this side if I want the sun to come from this side. On these bricks here, I'm going to give some shadow. On the here I already did, and on this I need some shadow too. I'm going to bring this in with the ink, the major parts. Now, if I have the window frames, for example, I know that in here would be shadow. So I'm going to bring that shadow in, and under here there would be shadow. There you go. And the panels the same. There would go some shadow under here and on the back here, unless you let these panels fall into it. That is a good question. Oh no, that's a window, so that's not a panel, so this is good. I will leave it like this. And that's what we've got. And now the next thing which I want to do is with the same inking pen, but smaller. So the 9 is for my outline, and I'm going to make actually a note of that. I'm going to add a new layer and make it big, and write on there 9 outline. It is, what did I have, the dip pen. Dip pen, I'm going to go for opacity 100%, water 1% or 0, and the length is, you might not have that one anyway. So 9 for the outline, and when I'm going to do some shading, no, not shadow, let's call it actually shading, I'm gonna do, let's go for a 7. Let's try that first. I'm gonna hide this, of course, my note. Go back to this one. Let's try a 7. And let's see if that looks nice. I know my sun comes from here, so the sun is mainly here. So I'm gonna hatch, and I think I'm fine with this 7. Yeah, I'm gonna keep the 7 for hatching. And there you go. And by doing this, I'm gonna bring in actually some interest into the drawing. And later on with the ink, this will look really good. Now, what I'm gonna do with these bricks, I'm gonna give it some shadow right here. Now, if you've never done this before, what you could do, add a new layer, hide everything, get me an overview. There you go. What you could do then with that ink pen, you draw simply a box. Doesn't need to be perfect. And what you're going to do is you're going to just practice the hatching, and you want to make this motion starting at one point, ending at another point, and doing basically this. And if you need longer strokes, you just need to extend your motion or do them like the sketching motion too, but if you can, do it in the longer. And with light and shadow, it's simply, if my sun is here, then it means this is in full sun, and the further away I get from the sun, I get more hatching basically. And hatching, just draw these lines in under an angle, and that is all I'm gonna do. For this one, I'm not gonna go cross hatching. With cross hatching, what you could do, you could actually add in even a stronger layer or bring in some texture. That would be cross hatching, but I'm gonna do hatching only. So if you need to practice that first, then go ahead. I wanna hide that layer. Oh, I don't need that. I think I swapped the whole canvas around. Yep. There you go. So this is basically what I'm going to do with the whole drawing. I'm going to determine where light is, where shadow is, and which object might cast a shadow onto another object, and where I want a little bit of shading so that you get the idea. Light and shadow is there. Now, if I bring back the photo, this of course is totally in shading, but I'm going to do that with this shade, bring that in with the watercolor. So to get a very interesting play between the ink and the watercolor. Well, there it is. Good. Gonna look at that in total. Hide my sketch for now. There you go. And this is then the end result we're going to get all over this image. What you may want to do with this one layer, for now, lock it too. Make sure that you don't draw on it per accident. So lock it, keep it locked until you're ready, and then we're going to remove it anyway. Right, good. Let's see. The plans, let me show you this part, which I'm going to do with this here. And what I prefer to do again when inking, I'm going to add now a new layer and do the foliage, the tree on a different layer. Now you may, oh, this goes not well. You may be wondering who puts a tree right in front of the door. Nobody does that, okay? That's what drew me to this photo anyway, when I was walking around town. This is a photograph I took myself. And I just noticed and said, okay, who's doing that? They actually have a side entrance, of course. 3. I'm going to go to the 9 and, oh, I'm doing it again. Gotta hit that right button. What I'm going to do with the 3, I'm basically going to make these kind of motions with my ink. See, and that gives, and going this way, a bit random. And around here, I'm going to add some of them to give the impression, there you go, that there is some leaves on it. And that is all I'm going to do basically with this tree. And then I'm going to lower it, and I know that there's some shading on it. So I'm going to basically add a little bit of shading on this tree. And that's all there is to this tree. Now, go back to the 9, to its trunk. What I'm going to do with this trunk, I know the sun comes from here, so let's go for the 7 again. There's going to be some shading here, and the rest I'm just going to shade like this. And then you give the impression that there's even some bark. Might add a little bit of a shadow line on the back, and that's basically all I'm going to do with that. All right, I think we've got enough for this session. That is all we're going to do in this session of Rebelle Revealed about inking. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to erase all of it. I'm going to just start over again, but this time I'm going to film it all, since I should be able to get this done without me having to get too close. This should work. So I'm going to give it a try to film it. Well, I might actually use Rebelle's recording mode too, to make sure, to be safe, that it goes well. So I'm going to be filming that, and in the next Rebelle Revealed, you can see the whole process of me inking this. Okay, well, I'm going to get back to work, and then in the next one you will see the whole process, how I do this.